Local Planning Agency on August 5th. Eva, please call the roll.
Dustin Woods,
Yes, here.
Jack Edgemon, Donald Clarke, Dr. Oxer, Gary Freeman,
Here.
Chris Duncan,
Here.
Alex Ramos.
Here. All right, just to clarify, for those of you guys, because I know there's at least one new face, this little button on your microphone needs to be green for you to speak. But if you're not speaking, certainly click that button again so it's off. Let's move into the consent agenda, and then after that, I'll provide some updates before we start our meeting. I'll wait to entertain a motion.
I'll motion to accept it. Oh, turn it back on. I motion to accept it.
Move from Mr. Freeman.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Hearing none. Eva, please call a roll.
I think you're going to have to say it.
It's a walk-on,
Does he have to-
so we can mention that.
Does he have to vote?
Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Dustin Woods,
Yes.
Alex Ramos.
Yes.
Just a couple of updates before we start the business of the evening. Update number one, if you are here tonight for the Grand Isles discussion, the developer of Grand Isles has asked to table that until September. There's a few development things he wants to work on, and so he asked that it be taken off the agenda for tonight. So that is slated at this point to be on September's agenda pending any changes, and y'all know how that goes. So just wanted to update you on that. Our business tonight will be as listed on the agenda, and we have one item that popped up today that we'll need to discuss briefly. With that said, another update that we have related to the local planning agency and Board of Adjustments is a bit of a change of the guard. Typically, this would have been brought before us for recommendation, but Town Council fielded the request exclusively on this particular change. And you'll notice on the roll call, Haas Compton's not on there. Haas Compton has stepped down from his role as a regular board member. Now Gary Freeman has moved from an alternate role into a regular board member position, and we have an additional alternate, which is over here to my left, Alejandro Ramos. Would you like to go by Alejandro for the record, or Alex?
Alex just makes it easier for everyone.
All right. Just for the sake of our town staff and any community members that are interested, Alex, just very briefly, a little bit of your background professionally. What do you do for a living, and how long have you lived in Lake Placid?
So I've been a Lake Placid resident for my entire life, except for whenever I left for college. And I'm currently the marketing manager for a fertilizer manufacturer that's based out of Israel. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board related to the board roles? Just for the record, how it'll work, you'll notice some of them are listed as regular board members and two are alternate members. In the absence of a board, so everyone will participate in the discussions. In the absence of a board member, Chris Duncan will be the first alternate to become a regular voting member. In the absence of two board members, like what I'm expecting tonight, like we've had thus far, Alex, you'll also vote on the discussion, but please weigh in. And I would like for you guys to be attending the meetings, weighing in on the meetings, because if in the event of something as complex as Grand Isles, for example, I would not want you to just come in when you were needed and be lost in the discussion. I'd love for you guys to have already weighed in. We know your thoughts on it. You've done your own research, and we're able to ask all your questions and so on and so forth. So thank you guys for your continued service to our community. With that said, let me turn it over to Town Planner Dana Rydell for this meeting's discussion.
Thank you. As you mentioned, my name is Dana Riddell. I'm the town planner. Our first item for tonight for our voting pleasure will be for an amendment and restatement of a development agreement that we've seen before for Dollar General. The package is included, the item is included in your package for tonight, so hopefully you've had the opportunity to review it. The changes are extremely minor. What had happened was when this came before the local planning agency the first time, we were all okay with the development agreement, but when it got to town council, an additional requirement was added for lighting, and that requirement named a specific measurement in foot candles. And after working with the site, Dollar General was able to produce a plan that would have complied with that foot candle measurement, but from a planning standpoint and probably Dollar General's standpoint, it still wasn't necessarily the safest lighting plan. And in speaking with the council member who had initiated this change, the intent was for there to be more of a uniform lighting across the site, and it should be a low measurement of foot candles so that, and the reason for that is so that your eyes don't have to spend too much time adjusting when you're in a public area. So if you're in a parking lot and there's a really bright light over here and 10 feet away, it's very, very dark, your eyes are spending a lot of time adjusting, which can impact your ability to see, visualize, or be able to witness anything that might be occurring in your surroundings. So if someone is lurking in the corner for safety reasons, you don't want your eyes spending that time adjusting. So that's the reason for the low number when it comes to foot candles, and also that it should have been uniform. So like I said, Dollar General was able to provide a plan that complied with the original requirement, but from multiple standpoints, it wasn't necessarily the best option for the site. So I'm going to go to the agreement, and I'm just going to point out the exact changes. When it comes to a development agreement, it's not necessarily like an ordinance where you just strike out the changes and underline them, and then it gets updated in a book. The underlined language and the stricken through language is what we are essentially approving, but we have to do this in what's called an amended and restated development agreement. So that's where some of these changes are, just a little housekeeping here, making sure we change the title of the document. Yes, okay. We add a letter acknowledging that this is, or sorry, a paragraph acknowledging that this is an amendment and restatement of the development agreement. And then the actual changes themselves occur right here. And I'll go down to the lighting plan for us to look at in just a moment. But originally, it didn't have this text here. It just said that no streetlights shall be positioned in such a way where they shine on any residential properties. The new lighting plan still does not propose shining on residential properties, but we wanted to really strengthen this language because we're basically saying there's going to be an access easement in the rear of Dollar General. Let me go ahead and look at it real quick. There's an access easement in the rear of Dollar General, and you can see these lights here. They need to shine on this cross-access easement to provide lighting, because essentially this is going to turn into a backage road that will connect all the adjacent developments in this area. So we want that to be lighted, but the parcel's pretty narrow, so they couldn't fit lighting on the south side in addition to the easement. So what we're doing with that change that we were just looking at is essentially saying lighting can point that direction, but you have to use a full cutoff light, which basically means when the light shines, it shines straight down. It doesn't shine out or up in any way. So when someone's standing in the back of that subdivision that's there on Lake Henry Drive, they shouldn't be able to see the light because it'll be pointing down. Like they might see it pointing down, but they're not going to see the light itself. It's not going to be creating light pollution. So that's where we were getting at with that change. And then our next change was simply reducing the foot candles from 5-foot candles to, I'm sorry, increasing to 6.6-foot candles. And again, if you look at this, the plan, this is how you can evaluate the site. So you see the actual lighting instrument is right here. This one's only shining at 3.7, so that complies with the limit of 6.6-foot candles. They have one, I think there's just one in here. And I can't see it right now, but there's only one measurement that shines at 6.6. But you'll see throughout this lighting plan, you can see a pretty even amount of lighting. Like we have 0.3, 0.3, 0.3. As we get closer to this other light, it goes up to 0.4. But the goal is that we don't have a major variation in the numbers. Yeah, okay, so yeah, here we have 6.2. That's like a higher number there. So ultimately, originally it was 5-foot candles. So this lighting would not have been allowed because it exceeds that. That might be 5 right there or a higher number. So it's just those 2 lines that they're asking for. And I'll get you back up to my staff report so you can look at the options for recommendation.
Any questions from the board for Ms. Rydell? We also have the engineer present, Mr. Medina, if you have any questions for him. If there are no questions or comments from the board, this being a public hearing, is there any commentary or questions from the public? Hearing none, bring it back to the board. The recommended, Ms. Rydell, I'm assuming naturally that the recommended action is one that you and the staff are in agreement on?
Correct. As staff, I am recommending to forward the proposed development agreement to the town council with the recommendation of approval.
Okay, I'll wait to entertain a motion.
I'll motion to accept it.
Second.
Would you like the exact language? You good with that? All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Eva, please call the roll.
Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Dustin Woods,
Yes.
Alex Ramos.
Yes.
Ms. Rydell, I know we have a couple of items of business, one being the FRDAP grant discussion and one being the interactive map tutorial. I'll defer to you. What you'd like to approach first?
Well, let's see if we could do the FERDAP grant application first, so maybe some of the staff that are here staying late can go home if necessary.
All right, thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Medina, for being here for the meeting tonight.
So I'm walking on an agenda item today. We are applying for a FERDAP, Florida Recreation Development Assistant Program grant to basically replace and install one of the playgrounds at Lake June ball fields. And we want to put in an ADA accessible playground in there. The FERDAP grants are done on a point basis. And so we're trying to get additional points. And one of the things you get points for is to go before a recreational advisory board. And we don't have a recreational advisory board, but in lieu of a recreational advisory board, we can come to the LPA.
We're happy to advise on recreation.
So I appreciate that. So you have a map, the project location, if you're familiar with Lake June ball fields, which probably most of you are. There's a playground there. It used to have a big climbing rope that we had to remove for safety items. Those playgrounds are aging out. And so that's the project location. So I wanted to bring it for any discussion. And so we have that discussion. We can log it in the minutes and get our points for the application. And if anybody has any comments or wants to know about anything else, there's actually, we we didn't bring it last year, but we did a FERDAP grant last year for pickleball courts. You may have heard about that. That's been approved. We're going to the RPAC meeting in 2 weeks to request some money for them that will build a set of pickleball courts a little to the east and south of that playground, and then do some road paving and parking areas along by the boat ramps and pavilions, and then up to that playground and where the pickleball courts are. So this is a second application that we're doing. So
Well, thank you guys for putting effort into improving recreation, particularly being able to offer something that's ADA compliant for kids in our community. We actually have more than we realize of kids that would benefit from that. And so I'm grateful for that.
okay.
As it relates to the board, are there any questions or comments for Mr. McCarthy or Ms. Rydell? Do you need any head nod from us or anything in the record to say that we had this discussion?
I think it's going to be in the minutes, so
Going to be in the minutes, and do you want to, because it's got to go to town council too next? Maybe they could do a recommendation.
I guess you do a recommendation for approval to town council.
Yeah. I move to recommend approval of seeking out this FRDAP grant for ADA compliant playground at Lake June Park ball fields to town council.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Certainly want to give the community an opportunity to respond. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Eva, please call the roll.
Dustin Woods,
Yes.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Alex Ramos.
Yes.
All right. The last part of the discussion tonight, you'll notice it's called the Interactive Map Resource Walkthrough. This is something that is and has been available to us, and frankly, I believe anyone in the community that would like to look at it. But it's, I think, a resource that oftentimes gets overlooked, as valuable as it is. So Ms. Rydell is just going to give us a quick crash course on what it is and how to use it, because this can be particularly helpful for this board in being able to forecast and understanding the ramifications of our decisions, et cetera. So Ms. Rydell.
Thank you. As stated, my name is Dana Riddell. I'm the town planner. As you all know, I've been here for some period of time, over a year. I think I calculated a year and a half earlier when I was talking to Gary. And in that time, I've stepped on a couple new boards, and one of those boards, I just showed up because I needed to figure out what I was supposed to do there and how I could be of assistance. And after attending a certain number of these meetings, me and another member raised our hand and we said, you know, we're not really sure what's supposed to happen here, how we obtain this information, how these resources all come to fruition. Can you help us? And they said, well, we used to have a really good staff that you can meet with, but I guess not anymore. So here's a 600-page book for you to read, and hopefully that helps. And I realized, I thought about my local planning agency, and I thought, man, I think I might have done the same thing to them. Like I've pointed you all toward Muni Code. You've been able to see that document. I talk about our comprehensive plan, which is hundreds of pages long. I talk about this property is zone this and this is zone that, and we have this future land use, but I don't think we've ever just peeled it back to the bare basics of some of the things that I do on a daily basis and how I start with evaluating any property that is up for consideration. And this is something that as a board, you all should be able to do and have available at your fingertips. So I have the map up that I'm going to show you. This is it. This is called our Highlands County Interactive Map. But if you're like me, you're never going to remember this URL here. Just forget it, right? So I'm going to show you ways to get to the map and how we can use it. So anytime you're on a computer, you can open up your Internet Explorer, any Internet Explorer that you want to use. We prefer to use Chrome here, and sometimes the property appraiser's office will give a disclaimer on certain platforms they want you to use. What you'll just Google is Highlands County Interactive GIS Map. GIS stands for right there, Geographic Information Systems. It's a particular type of map that is used. And let's make sure. Okay. So basically I just clicked on the first link. The website that I'm on right now, this website is the Highlands County Board of County Commissioners. The people who do our mapping for us are the Highlands County Board of County Commissioners. If zoning changes on a property, I notify Highlands County and they update their maps for me. So you would just go to, whatever website. This looks like an old page because that person is no longer in charge. So let's just make sure this works. Okay, this isn't what we're looking for. So in that case, I would have you go to the Highlands County Board of County Commissioners website. It's always really hard to describe this over the phone, but the moment you see it right there, it says interactive map. That's where we're going. highlandsfl.gov is the Highlands County Board of County Commissioners website. What I just showed you is like a dead page, so I'm sorry, please ignore that. So we go to the interactive map, we continue on, it's telling us that we're going to a different web page. There's going to be a disclaimer right here that pops up. This disclaimer is basically saying, take everything here with a grain of salt. Before you believe what you read, call the planning office. That's me. So it'll immediately take you to the Highlands County area. And like I said, this map is available to not only us and me as town planner, it's available to anyone in the public. And I see this shaded area. I know this is Lake Placid. I do find it interesting. I don't know why they have certain areas shaded because you would think this would be like the town limits or something, but then you have Placid Lakes out here and that's shaded. So I don't know the rhyme or reason for that, but there's certain things that we can look at that are really important. So let's just take a look at Royal Plaza. This is going to be Royal Plaza right here. We have Tractor Supply, we have Do It Best Hardware, Cowboy Taco, all the good stuff right in here, right? And this little box will come up. You can hit this arrow. Oh boy. Okay, the formatting here is definitely different. And it's just the computer settings, whatever we have it set to. It has something to do with how big the screen is what's going on. But this is page 1 of 1. Usually this will pop up as like a little call out box. So you could still see the property and you could still glean this information at the same time. It's not usually an either or. You'll get both pieces of information at the same time. It'll tell you who the property owner is. Huge disclaimer here, everyone. Huge disclaimer. For some reason, for maybe about a year and a half, the owner information has not been updating like it should be. Other things are up, everything else is up to date. Owner information is not always accurate. So if you do want the most up-to-date owner information, you have to go to the property appraiser's website. And you have that link right here available to you. But you see, this is 1 of 1. So it's telling me 1 page of information has turned up. Well, I want more information. I want to know what the zoning of this property is. So I come over here on the left-hand side and you see all these layers. I have all these to choose from. Mine are easy peasy because right up on the top is zoning and future land use. Honestly, it doesn't matter which one you pick because they both are going to give you the same information, but it does matter if you're a visual person. So let me show you. So I turn future land use on. Now I have colors on my map. Now when I click on that same property, instead of getting 1 page of information, I'm going to get 2. Okay. Okay. So in this case, again, the settings on this computer are different. The owner information turned up on page 2. But on page 1, you see where it says zone, LPC1. Flume, LPCG. So the zoning is not LP. I want you to know that. LP means Lake Placid because every municipality has a different set of regulations. I have people call all the time. It's totally normal assumption to make, but people will call and they'll say, well, what's B3 in the city of Lake Placid? They'll say city too instead of town. And I say, I'm sorry, but there is no direct comparison. Highlands County, their commercial zoning districts are B1, B2, B3, B4. In the town of Lake Placid, our commercial zoning districts are C1, C2, and our light manufacturing and commercial district is C3. They are not the same. So sometimes though, Lake Placid, we have a zoning called R1 or R1A. But so does Highlands County. They have a zoning called R1 and R1A. But in the town of Lake Placid, our zoning regulations in that R1 and R1A district are different than Highlands County because every jurisdiction makes their own rules. They might assign the same zoning like R1, R1A, R3, R2, like the same abbreviations, but they are not the same. So always keep that in mind. So in this case, the information that I can get here is it's in the town of Lake Placid. That's what LP means. And if there is no LP in front, that means it's in the unincorporated Highlands County. If there's an S, it means Sebring. If there's an A, or it might be AP, that means Avon Park. So in this case, we know that this property is zoned C1 and CG. Well, what does that mean? To find out what's allowed in C1 or any zoning district, and I'm thinking maybe I should save some of this for a different day, but you can Google, and I promise Google will work this time. Town of Lake Placid Unicode. You do have to be careful because we have a Lake Placid, New York. So take a good look when you open Unicode. You see our symbol up there? That's how you know you've landed in the right place. You're in the town of Lake Placid. So Municode. Municode is a database that a lot of municipalities and jurisdictions use to keep their regulations on file. I can do the same thing for Highlands County Municode. Let me make sure this is Highlands County, Florida. Yep, right there, Highlands County, Florida. We don't want Ohio. So what can I do in the C1 district? Well, I have my whole code book up here electronically. I can look up C-1. Okay, now this tells me everything I'm allowed to do in the C1 district, minimum lot space, or sometimes if a residential use is allowed, a living area. Setbacks, 25 feet, 20 in the rear. Lot coverage requirements. It would be really cool if I had a website that I could just click on the property and know all this information right off the bat, but we are actually light years ahead with having everything on ArcGIS. Like, we're doing really good in Highlands County. So this is good for where we're at. All right, so I go back to my map. I know my property is zoned C1 and CG is the future land use. Well, what does that mean? I go to town of Lake Placid. I think, and we can go over this a different way. You all can let me know some suggestions, or if you need me to write anything down, I can do that as well. But I'm just trying to show you how to get there from certain locations. If you're like me, sometimes you can like start somewhere and then find your way from there. So if we go to the town of Lake Placid website and we go to departments, development services. Oh my gosh, beautiful, beautiful webpage, especially right there. Laugh with me, folks. Okay. And then, yeah, a lot in like the year and a half that I've been here. All the way down at the bottom, right there, we have the Town of Lake Placid Comprehensive Plan. And we've discussed this before. We know that every property has two designations. They have a zoning designation and a future land use designation. If the zoning and future land use are inconsistent, the property cannot be developed without one of them being fixed. So I do Control G. or C, and Control F, I'm sorry. And let's see, no, it's not gonna find it that way. Sometimes you have to know the abbreviation. So this is where it gets a little frustrating. You have to know where the dashes are. Oh, and it might not even come up for me that way. Okay, hold on. It's in the future land use element. So anytime you're looking up a future land use classification, you'll find it in the future land use element. And this is what I'm looking for right here, commercial general. Yeah, it looks like our code doesn't have it. A lot of codes will have the abbreviation in there too for you to be able to search. So you can see high density residential. We even adopted some of Highlands County's future land uses. County mixed use. Okay, commercial general. So it says predominant uses in commercial general areas are those which provide specialty or convenience goods for retail sale and medical and professional services. This land use shall have a substantial non-residential component with a supporting residential component. So I think that's kind of like the town's way of saying, yeah, we want commercial, but we also want walkability. So if we allow some residential in there, it's okay, but the primary purpose of this district is to be commercial. And so it sets some standards. Again, we go back to the future land use is the vision. So you see, like when it tells us the future land use, we're getting, I don't know, what is that, like 6 sentences? So that's not enough for us to be able to regulate a property and to determine what the rules are and should be for that property and how to best develop it and design it. So that's why every property has 2 designations. This designation is telling us this area is poised for commercial growth. And there's some frameworks, some very loose boundaries. When we get into our code of ordinances and we get into the C1, that's where they say, well, this kind of commercial, these are the kinds of things that are okay. And these are the kinds of setbacks we want to see. And this is the kind of lot size that should accommodate this type of development. Provide standards. Okay, so I X out of there. And there's other fun tools. So remember how I said it doesn't really matter which one you use, because you saw when I pulled up that page, it showed me both the zoning and the future land use. But if you're a visual person, it still might matter. So I'm gonna turn this future land use off and I'm gonna turn zoning on. You see the colors are slightly different. But a lot of times that's really helpful in determining if it's consistent or inconsistent. So I'm going to click on this property again. It's going to take me to these pages, and the same information shows up no matter whether it's zoning or future land use. It's telling me the zoning and future land use either way, no matter what layer I click on, but the visual does change. Something else that's really helpful, if you click these 3 dots and you select show labels, and you have to turn the layer back on. If you don't turn the layer on, it's not going to work. Boom. Now you can see LPCG. So it's labeled all these properties. The reason there's so many labels in this area is because it's labeling every single storefront. Also, there's site address labels up. So what's interesting, you see right here, this layer's on. I can turn it off, and then I won't know anyone's address. But I could turn it back on, and I know that every person in this plaza has a different address, which also might come in handy because sometimes someone will give you an address and you're like, no, I'm putting it in the property appraiser's website right now. That address is not coming up for me. Oops. I'm going to the hcpao.org. Okay, back down to Royal Plaza. When I click here, the only address that comes up is 70 Plaza Ave. So if in the property appraiser, I look for any of these other addresses, like 170, 150, 138, even though that is a valid address for 911 addressing or GIS addressing, it is not going to be the address I need in order to find the parcel on the property appraiser's website, because this whole parcel has one address assigned to it for the property appraiser. And for for the property appraiser, tax purposes, basically. So don't get frustrated if someone's like, no, this is definitely the address, and you're like, I can't find it. It's probably part of a strip. Okay, other cool layers include, I'll zoom out. Also, layers change depending on how much you zoom in and zoom out. So actually, let me go back here. You see how I have the labels on here? If I zoom out far enough. Okay, I lied. It's making a liar out of me today. But there is some layers that kind of like disappear and you have to zoom in order to see them. Like right here, site addresses, they have disappeared. You see how it grayed out? It's gray because I'm too far out. But if I zoom in, addresses, voila. Okay. So other cool layers like I was showing, I'm going to take zoning off. And we often have discussions about the LPRP, right? That's the Lake Placid Regional Planning Area. Some of it is in our town limits and some of it is not. So first of all, we have our municipal boundary. Anything is green are things that we have indeed annexed. They are in our town limits. They either started that way when the town began or we have annexed them. I like this layer because sometimes I can get other good information off of it. Like I need to know exact dates of annexation sometimes when it comes to our sign ordinance. So if I zoom in on a property, click here. So the first page, it's showing me owner information. Second page is showing me the municipal boundary layer right here, 2019-785. That is the ordinance that annexed this property. And then it provides owner information again. Yes, the date of the ordinance. Sometimes the dates of ordinances can be a little misleading. Sometimes they start in 2019 and they don't get finalized till 2020. So sometimes you're looking for like a real 2020 date. But what's interesting here, because I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh snap, there's two owners shown here. And it's how information is grouped. I'm really giving you a crash session right now. It's how information is grouped. So right now, because I am in the layer of municipal boundary and it's saying these properties were annexed at this time, this is showing me all properties that were annexed under that ordinance. So I have this property owned by the Hayward Davis Trust. And then I have this other property owned by Carol Davis. And they're both showing up at the same time because they were both annexed at the same time, right under this annexation ordinance. But getting back to the LPRP, so that's our municipal layer, right? We have our LPRP here. This is everything that's supposed to be in the long range, the town of Lake Placid long range planning area. You can see some parcels weren't incorporated in that area because they elected not to be included. From my understanding, anyone that's part of it provided approval. But then we have like a neighborhood like Tomoka Heights who, although technically in the LPRP will, to my knowledge, never annex into the town because of some water agreements that they have, but they're still subject to the LPRP. And for residential properties that are already developed, it really doesn't mean much. But if you are a new residential development outside of this brown area, you are limited to 3 dwelling units per acre. If Additionally, there's certain areas, you'd have to look at this plus the annexation boundary. Certain areas have different sign regulations. So it should be anything in here in the brown area is considered the historic developed town. And in these areas, you can get up to a maximum of 12 dwelling units per acre. And then we know that with the LPRP, plan development zoning is triggered when you do a zoning change, future land use change, or plat. So in some of this, in most of this brown area, I have to look again and compare my maps, but it should be this brown area. Parcels under 2.5 acres can be considered exempt from the PD requirement. And that's at the discretion of the planning and zoning official. So that's me, but I generally require a PD unless it's something very, very, very low intensity, like redevelopment of some kind, of something that was already there. So I think these are the key layers. I don't want to keep you here all night. I know we've had some crazy weather today, but I wanted to at least open this up for discussion, conversation. I hope you go back and explore, and maybe someone asks you a question and you're able to answer it. There is one more thing I want to dispel. I want you to be very, 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 very careful. So now we're back on the property appraiser's website, okay? All the way down at the very bottom, you can find out what zoning is. Actually, this might be a really good example. This is a great example. Okay. But there is a disclaimer. The zoning information contained in this record is not guaranteed. When a zoning change happens, nobody notifies the property appraiser's office. We notify addressing, the documents are officially recorded into the record, but nobody specifically reaches out to the property appraiser's office for them to update their zoning. So we're looking at Town Hall right now. This is the property we're sitting in right now. And it's actually zoned planned development. But the property appraiser's office still has it listed as AU, which is Highlands County Agricultural District. That's a zoning district that existed before we ever annexed it. We annexed it and we have rezoned it since then. So this is a prime example of where sometimes government institutions face silos, and we get as much information out as we possibly can, but we're all juggling a lot of balls and handling a lot of different plates. And so this is where information sometimes falls through. And the property appraiser's office, I think they do their best to try to stay up to date. And they provide that information as a courtesy. To some degree, it can be helpful, but just really be careful. So just always call if you have any question, any doubt, anything, please call me. And if it's in the unincorporated Highlands County, call them. Or if it's another town or anything like that. There's so many hands in the pot. It's so hard to keep all the information straight all the time.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Please.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Why wouldn't you change this location? Can't you do that? You do that through the lawyer, wouldn't you, the town attorney?
Change the zoning?
Shouldn't it be? Yeah, you just said it's agricultural. So why wouldn't it get changed at some point?
So the issue is that it actually did get changed, but the property appraiser's office didn't update their website.
Oh, so it has been changed?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're showing an old agricultural zoning.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And it doesn't really amount to any one person's fault or anything like that. Like I said, it's a lot of hands in the pot. I think we've come a long way in our coordination with the property appraiser's office over the years. And nowadays I'm being notified of lot splits, combinations, things that I was never notified about before. So it's just going to be a continued coordination between the municipalities and the property appraiser's office to continuously find ways to get that sorted. And also, to answer that question, Gary, I'm even coming back with a change to our PD very soon so that we can get the police station built. But is this too much? Is this an information dump or what? Are you gentlemen okay?
I think it was a good crash course. I would probably need to play with it a little bit to have a better handle on it, but this is a good resource so that some of this stuff coming down the line, we'll know how to do a little research on our own even before we get the packet or in between packets.
Yeah, absolutely good. I just want to make sure you have that available. And if any of this seemed like a lot or I went over anything and you just forget and you just remember a little snippet. Like I said, I'm one of those people too that starts somewhere, and if I could start in that one spot, that's where I launch off from. So if I can launch any of you gentlemen off in any way, let me know, and I'm happy to follow up with any of this information.
Yeah, no, thank you for prioritizing this because I know that this is important for a lot of the things that we get an opportunity to look at. So thank you, Ms. Rydell. Any questions for her? All right, hearing none, I do not believe we have any citizens not on the agenda. Am I correct in saying that?
I don't have anything.
All right, with that said, motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Whoops, we have a citizen not on the agenda? All right, sorry, I didn't know if you were making an exit.
No, Pam Fentress, just a community member. For this map, I would state that it's about 18 months out of date with who owns what land. What you need to do is just play around with it. There's some cool parts on that, railroad lines, utility lines. So, and what also of interest when people come in, they're looking for the zoning for the industrial or business. So there's ways that you can manipulate it when you go to print these different maps with the different color codes. That's important too. Like if you zoomed out, put in the flume, the future land use part of it, and the zoning, and then you'll have 30 different color codes. Well, then you need to be able to go to the layers, and then it'll tell you like at the bottom when you print out these maps, this is B, yellow means residential, light yellow means low density residential, bright yellow means high, or whatever, you got red means commercial. So, but in the Lake Placid Regional Plan, the colors mean different things than the county colors.
Yeah.
So it's just something you play with. I walked somebody through it last week that were looking for stuff. I'd like to see, the county doesn't do central sewer utilities, so therefore they don't have a little checkbox for that. I think that comes in highly handy when you're looking at where can development go. And then my family's property is not in the Lake Placid Regional Plan. We fought 15 years ago to stay out. That's the color coded. I'm on one of them that she's showing. But when people come to develop in Lake Placid, because I think that the regulations are so stringent in the Lake Placid Regional Plan, what they're doing is going south of State Road 70, like the private golf course. They're going north of town, east and west. So there's the Grand Isles, that's y'all have seen a couple of times, there's trying to get past, and there's been another one that might potentially come up. But I think you're just gonna have more urban sprawl as people do single-family homes, Leisure Lakes, Placid Lakes, Sun and Lake South, and Highlands Park. So there's going to continue to be more people that move to Lake Placid, the greater Lake Placid area, but they're really not gonna contribute to the amenities in Lake Placid. They're not gonna pay town Lake Placid taxes. They're not gonna build your parks. They're not gonna, a lot of the infrastructure costs. They're building a single family house out in Leisure Lakes. They're not gonna pay for versus being in the town of Lake Placid or the Lake Placid Regional Plan in a development. So I think there's a lot of things to discuss with that. And then are we done with that? Because I do have other comments.
Okay.
Thank you, Pam.
Let me just make sure, Madam Councilwoman, did you have other commentary on the map while we're on the subject? On the GIS, please.
Well, back here, I couldn't see exactly, but the ones that I've used in the past have some really cool little tools on the top where you can do measuring, and you can block out areas and get acreage, just things to play with.
I mean, you can even see what your trash day is.
Thank you. Yeah, you can actually see when your trash day is. But you know what, that's a good point, Pam and Miss Eberhard did bring up some good points. So I did just kind of show you how to print real quick. If you print something, this is the legend Pam was talking about at the bottom, where you can match up the colors with what's on the screen. And then Ms. Eberhard brings up a great point that it has this awesome tool. You can measure distance or area, change it from miles to feet. I'm always doing feet. This is how you would do area. So there's a lot of different things. You can also do, well, I used to be able to do buffer maps. I don't know what's going on with that anymore.
Gotta check the box.
I got to check a box? Is
Check
that
a
what it
box on the left side.
I'll have you show me. But yes, okay, so that was it for the map. Sorry about that.
But it's cool. That's why I do the area, and you can do the feet, like how many, where's your 100 foot, where's your so-and-so, and so you can just click on it. It's purely playing with it. And just till you get used to it. To me, I would have been totally lost had I not been using this website in the past. I mean, just, not because you did anything wrong, it's just like it's information overload, but once you do it, you're like, duh, then you don't have to ever learn that again. So just play with it.
Thank you. And any other commentary related to the maps? Any questions while we're having a quick training session? All right. Ms. Fentress, you had some matters of other business?
Every couple of months, I come before y'all and ask you for the vision of the greater Lake Placid area besides the Lake Placid Regional Plan or the town of Lake Placid. Then I kind of ask why there's not more growth and the economic development. Where are our employment centers? Where are high paying wages? And whether it's this responsibility of this board or not, in the past we've talked about it, but it seems like months go by, years go by, and we find ourselves basically talking about the exact same things without doing a whole lot. Just in my opinion, I don't mean to, I'm not trying to place blame or anything, but it just seems like we do something minor here or there. And to me, going down Highway 27, things look worse off now than they were a couple of years ago. And you read the paper and you read the different articles, and Florida's booming, and Polk County's booming, and this one's booming. Everybody's booming everywhere. Sebring's and Avon Park's, just the growth, the economy and everything. I don't see it happening in Lake Placid, and I understand we don't want to be a Sebring. I mean, the town council's made that clear over decades. I think that people, they want to keep Lake Placid unique and a lot of stuff, but the Florida citrus industry, which I'm a citrus grower, as you've heard me say before, we're not what we used to be, and it's definitely on the decline. Our grove is pushed, pulled, burned. A lot of groves, as you ride around, you'll see them. They're no longer standing. So a lot of stuff on Twitty Road going south of State Road 66. Their commercial zoning now. Sebring is moving this way. Sewer is in south of State Road 66. So you've got the city of Sebring. They're expanding to different areas. They've come south of State Road 66. My fear is that Lake Placid, and maybe you don't want to have that kind of growth. We're never really going to grow because people are going to keep on moving here, but they're going to move Leisure Lakes, Placid Lakes, Sun and Lakes, Highlands Park. We've talked in the past, y'all talked in the past, State Road 70, the propane, the natural gas line, and you even passed a resolution to send to the town council to ask for a legislative request, for legislative funding. That was over a year ago. I don't know, even more than that. Town council, they decided to do something different. But Ray Royce came here over a year ago and talked about the Duke Energy Readiness Site and gave a presentation on that, but we don't seem to follow up on that. Like I recently had people contact me for our property, but also the business part. They need a large commercial area, talking over 100,000 square feet. There's not many opportunities for people that want to invest in Lake Placid to invest in, and that goes to do with the zoning. So I don't know if you think about how you can be proactive, or do you not want to be proactive in it, the changing of our future. It seems like we don't really do enough in that. I know I'm kind of rambling, but
Well, I know that's been a concern of yours, and we certainly share in that. And every time I hear an update on the citrus industry, I cringe. I mean, our family has deep roots in that as well, and I'm sorry that that continues to be kind of an unraveling part of your family story as well. I don't know, I don't have any material response to what you said, but I do know that, I mean, you and I were sitting in the same meeting where we're talking about this golf development that's going to be coming in south. That's going to end up bringing some interesting industry opportunities for us because people from around the world that have lots of money, because those are the members at places like that, are going to see this pristine piece of Florida that's perfectly located and has an airport and a railroad track and all the good, and a beach and Disney World right down the street. I think we're going to have some interesting conversations coming down the pipe over the next 5 to 10 years. In addition to that, I have been meeting with some of the Economic Development Council leadership as well, just learning about some of the things that are sniffing around. And I've been invited to just sit in a meeting here in a couple weeks to just kind of speak on behalf of my hopes for the future of Lake Placid with a particular industry that's looking about planting here. So like I said, that's not a material answer. That may not result in anything, but there are a few things working in the background that is potentially as aggravating as the last 20 years of a slow citrus decline and not any industry to fill in the vacuum. I get the sense that we're probably within 10 years of starting to really see some electricity from there. And I think Duke Readiness Survey is going to really be helpful. I mean, shoot, they sold Lake Placid to the world quite well, I thought, with that video or whatever that they put together. And so I would suspect that we should start having more meaningful conversations in the days to come. I certainly hope so. And I'm committed to be having those conversations behind the scenes with county officials, economic development folks, to learn about what we can do and how we can be best prepared. Obviously, a lot of that lands on council's desk, but how we can be best prepared to at least accommodate well the possibility of new business and industry here. I want us to be in a place as a town, and I'm grateful that, we have new councilwoman present with us. I want us to be in the driver's seat with new industry coming in. I want us to be able to say no when we want to say no, but not belabor the process make it so difficult that they tap out. I want to be the ones that make that choice. I don't want them to just weary of trying to do business with Lake Placid. So I share your grief. And
I appreciate that. I go to the Highlands Economic Development meetings now. Miss Dana's there as well. Just trying to find out what's happening, what's going, what's the plan, what are y'all doing? I look at Hardy County Economic Development, DeSoto, so-and-so, and it's just a lot of other places. And again, you want reasonable growth or light industrial, green industrial. I'm not trying to get us to be, the town has never wanted billboards or, a lot of different stuff, but.
the term I use is boutique industrial.
Right, that's
We want to
fine,
tell
but-
you how small we want your facilities to be.
But are there higher paying wages?
Yeah.
A rising tide lifts all ships. The public education system is directly tied to the economic viability, I believe, of the county.
Yeah.
So, and
Well, the good news is even with the Grand Isles surveys and stuff, regardless of whether that goes through, we did learn that we have room in our Lake Placid schools for growth. So, I mean, we plenty of opportunity for us on a commercial standpoint, and even we need to get some residential development going, whether it's Grand Isles or not, because that's going to attract families too. But thank you for always being so involved in the needs of the community, Ms. Fentress. I wish you would actually get on one of the boards that you sit in, because you could really help us out.
yak in here.
Yeah, I get it.
As everybody
That's right. That's right. Hey, I've asked multiple EDC if any seats come open on the EDC. I've told them I want to be on it, representing the faith industry, which is massive in Highlands County, and so I want to be a part of kind of opening the gateway for opportunities in our community. I meet with Sarah Beth Rogers a couple times talking about some of that stuff. So I know that we want to see some good growth, but we also want to. Our website says that we want to preserve the charm of Lake Placid too. Let's let Sebring be Sebring. We don't want that mess down here. But I would like for people to have meaningful jobs close to home. I think that's important for us too. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us for the meeting tonight. Is there any further discussion, any other citizen not on the agenda now that we've poked a few lions? All right, seeing none. If there's nothing else from the board, I'll wait to entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second vote by standing up. All right. Thank you, guys. Second.
Thank you, gentlemen.